Super excited for this week's episode of People, Passion, Power. We've got Justin Cox, the CEO and founder of Atlas Brew Works. What an operation he's got. They're opening up a location at the ballpark for, the goal is for opening day. So give it a listen, pretty interesting story. Welcome back to People, Passion, and Power with Jason Martin. Our guest today is Justin Cox, CEO, founder, whatever else you want to call yourself, of Atlas Brew Works. Super excited to have you on the show. Appreciate you joining us.
Pleasure to be here, absolutely.
So we've been tracking you a little bit. Tell us your story. We like to hear people's backgrounds, how they got to where they are today, and how you're thinking about things. I know you're opening a new location over near the ballpark. We'll talk about that, but this wasn't your career path, was it?
No, so I mean, originally, I grew up in East Tennessee, kind of the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. Went to school in Nashville at Vanderbilt. I chased a girl up here about 16 years ago or so. Professionally, I was working doing business consulting stuff for a couple years, then went back to law school and then took a fellowship with the federal government. And had just been, on the beer side, been a big beer nerd the entire time. Got a homebrew kit, started homebrewing quite a bit. Entered some of my recipes into a couple homebrew competitions, started winning some awards, and at the same time just hated my soul-crushing day job in a super bureaucratic government. And so those things kind of came together, and I said, at the time when I had the idea, there was no breweries in DC, no production breweries, so I said, kind of screw it, I'm going to give it a shot now, be angry at myself when I'm old. All
right, so hated the job, hated the career.
Yep.
And then you made it sound so simple. Screw it, I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to do it. It couldn't have been that simple of a decision at the time.
No, it wasn't. It kind of, it wasn't just certainly one moment where I decided, all right, this is what's going to happen. But I think I'd always had the idea of starting a business, always had kind of an entrepreneurial bug, just looking for what outlet that may take. And then obviously, like I said, I had a huge passion for beer. Got a little affirmation on some of the quality of the beer that I was putting out. And so kind of, probably after one too many beers in the backyard with my brewing buddy, just kind of threw the idea around. I was like, man, we should really just start a brewery up, and then that just kind of snowballed, and then it was a process from, all right, we're actually getting serious about this, to actually getting the doors open here at Atlas. It was probably 2.5, 3 years or so.
Oh, really?
From all
okay.
Building the business plan out, then looking for or convincing people to give me money to do this, and then actually getting the space and permits and all of that. It's quite a long process for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you go back to 2013, 7 years or so in right about now?
Yeah, about 6.5.
6.5. Yeah. Obviously, it looks like the right decision from the outside. You reflect on it. Any regrets?
I mean, always and none at the same time. That's kind of a weird way to look at it, but I mean, we've been very fortunate. I think we've done a lot of things correctly, and it hasn't always been from the get-go. We've definitely had to zig and zag along the way and make some changes and try new things and dump some things that weren't working well. But just kind of always keeping that in our minds, and being that we're a small company and can be very nimble, and we can decide what we want to do and change things up, and just always continuing to do that has served us well.
Mm-hmm. So, small company, as we're standing on location here, what's the square footage of the brewery?
This is 16,000 square feet here.
16,000 square feet.
16,000, yeah.
And that was your first endeavor in acquiring square footage for a business. So as I hear 16,000 square feet, I go, holy bleep, you jumped right off the diving board with that.
Well, when we first opened, it was only about 7,000
or
so. So we only had a part of this first floor of the building, and there was another tenant in the space we're standing now. They moved out in maybe 2014 or so, and then we took over the rest of the space. And it was probably a little bit earlier than we needed it, but obviously, the opportunity was there, and we couldn't go anywhere else, and so we just took it over, thought that what are we going to use the space for? We'll eventually grow into it, cut a couple holes in the wall with the idea that we're going to knock down all the walls eventually. But really, we filled it up in maybe 6 months or so, putting in a new cooler and storage and all of that. So it turned out to be the right decision, although very nerve-wracking and probably a little bit earlier than we would have made it otherwise.
Yeah. I'm very curious about mindset for folks like yourself. What we've realized in doing a lot of these interviews with different people is not everybody can make that shift of realizing, hey, I'm not happy in this career and this is what I'm going to pursue. When you did that, what is your mentality about this career now? Do you go, damn, I'm so glad I did it? Like, the mindset is what now?
Absolutely. I mean, best decision I've made career-wise, for sure. I mean, it's obviously a super risky thing to go out on your own and start a business, and there's, chance of failure is huge, and it's ever present as well. And I'm at the government just collecting my check every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That direct deposit hits, and no problem. But it's also, it's trade-offs, right? And so that job came with a lot of restriction, and I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out who to ask for permission to do stuff rather than doing a whole lot of stuff. Whereas this, I can kind of do whatever I want, whenever I want. But then the flip side of that is obviously, I've got all the responsibility for everything now as well. So if something doesn't work, it falls on me.
Yeah.
Rather than, my other job, it was sort of dispersed throughout.
Were you prepared mentally for that shift? Like all the roles all the hats that you wear now within the organization, how did you prepare for that, or is it just kind of grown and developed into what it is?
Man, yeah, we just make it up as we go along.
Nice.
I don't know if you can actually truly be prepared, because and day to day everything is so different, because one day I'm in the office doing accounting and spreadsheet stuff, and the next day I'm out fixing a pump or doing something mechanical, and then out doing sales, and just all these different things you have to do, and you just kind of have to figure out how to do it. And I found for myself, at least, the best way to do that is just kind of throw yourself into it, and trial by fire, and then do it a couple, 3 times and get the hang of it.
So when you're doing all of these additional tasks, whether it be accounting or employee management or HR or all the different roles that you have, does it pull you away from the business you thought you were getting into? Like you did home brews, you entered some competitions, you like brewing, right?
Right.
And it's not that though anymore, is it?
No, it's definitely not. And so from the get-go, I was never never an actual brewer here. I had a partner who was a head brewer with kind of commercial experience, who since left, and now we have a very great young head brewer. That the technical side of brewing on a commercial scale is, although the process is similar and basically the same, it's a lot more nuanced and a lot more controlled than anything that I had done. So. But I've definitely at the beginning was working in the production side a lot, filling kegs and cleaning things and that kind of day to day. When at the beginning there was 2 of us, and so we were just doing everything, and production was number 1 because we got to get the beer out in order to sell it and have a business. And then as we've grown and added employees, then that, like you said, that your responsibilities shift into some back office stuff and some sales things, and so it's just kind of whatever the day calls for, I guess, is where we end up.
So 2 employees or 2 folks in the beginning. To what's the organization look like now? What's the structure?
So right now we have 12 full-time employees and about 25 part-time employees. So we've got, we have a director of operations, we have a director of sales, we have our head brewer, and then we've got 2 taproom managers, one for Ivy City location and one for our upcoming Half Street location. And then we've got 4 production guys, we have 2 sales guys underneath our sales director. And then we've got our part-time employees are mostly our people who work in the tap room.
Is it taking you on the path you thought it would be? Was this part of your business plan, the employees, the structure to look like that?
Honestly, I don't think I really considered it at the beginning. It was very much like, let's make some beer and sell it and see where it goes. And then as the business grows, then you have to grow the organization, to support what's going on within the business.
So where does that switch happen for you? There was a shift that happened somewhere along the line that you went, I gotta expand or contract. Was that the conversation you were having with yourself, or what type of conversation?
Well, it was sort of for our new tap room that's coming online in Half Street in particular. We've been, our business had been at the beginning just completely wholesale, so we were only selling to distributors, in bulk. When we first opened, it wasn't actually legal in DC for you to come and walk in the brewery and drink a pint of beer. You could come in and have a couple samples, and we were giving away samples on the weekends. You can give out 12 ounces per person per day, which is a horrible business model. So we've been giving stuff away all day, but. The law changed to allow us to sell beer on premise, and then so once we started selling beer on premise, then a lot of people were coming out and were drinking beer, and it was a great revenue stream. So we kind of recognized that and decided, all right, well maybe it's time we put a little bit more attention into our tap room. And so our original tap room was 4 taps on the side of a cooler in an unconditioned warehouse, and then we built this tap room about 3 years ago or so. Just putting, again, more attention into the design, the experience people are going to have when they come in here. We have a lot more beers that are available, and so that kind of steered us, that law change and seeing the result in that steered us into this. And then our Half Street tap room really came about, so we said we have 16,000 square feet here, but their ceilings are pretty short. They're only 12'9", and so for brewing, that's not really great. I mean, the taller ceilings you have, the taller your tanks can be, the more beer you can fit in each square foot. But is what it is, what we've got. So we're getting to the point we're now starting to look for another production facility because we're starting to outgrow this guy. And during that search process, we came across the opportunity at Half Street. We are going to be producing beer down there and brewing as well, but it'll be mainly that beer will be brewed just be for that location. And so it's kind of, that wasn't what we were setting out to do or to find, but then, like I said, when the opportunity came out, we sort of looked at the success we've had here and what we think we can do down there, and it made a lot of sense.
Walk me through the distribution. I mean, you're putting out a lot of product now. Are you putting out 20%, 40%, 100% more each year? I mean, it looks like you're growing, to me, pretty rapidly in a great way.
Yeah.
How are you doing it?
So we're trying to remember what our original barrel now. I think we did we measure our production in barrels. So your kind of standard keg is a half barrel. So 1 barrel, 2 of those. I mean, that's the unit that we're taxed on by the federal government. So that's what our industry uses to measure size of production. So we ended up, I think our first year we were maybe like 1,200 barrels, and we did about 2,300 barrels. We had the second year was maybe like 3,200, and then it was 3,500. We kind of slowed down for a little bit, and then last year we ended up doing about 4,300 barrels, and this year to 5,500 barrels. So pretty big increase in the last couple of years, which is wonderful, especially now. When we opened in 2013, there was about 3,000 breweries in the whole United States, and now there's 7,500 breweries, which is crazy because when we go out to our conventions, and we have a big craft brewers convention in Denver every year, we're the old guys in the room. We've only been around for 6.5 years, but we've been open longer than half of the breweries that are in existence in the United States, which is crazy. But that being said, there's also 7,500 breweries. So there's a lot more beer out there. There's only so many beer taps and so much cooler space, and so it's a lot more competitive than it was when we first opened. But we've been doing what we're doing, and it seems to be working, and we've been able to grow. We're in an atmosphere where a lot of other guys are not, which is great for us.
Yeah, I was going to hit on that because it feels like the brewing industry caught fire about when you stepped in, and it just continues to gain popularity. Does the competition scare you?
I mean, always, but it's also, I see our competition, one thing that's great about beer, and especially craft beer, is that it's very communal. Like, even the people who are competitors, both locally and regionally and nationally, they're all pretty good people. People who get into the beer industries tend to have a kind of nice attitude about things. Yeah. But it's absolutely competitive. Like I said, there's only so much space out there for beer. I see kind of our big competition is the big guys, like Budweiser is number one. Budweiser's out to kill us actively, and not just us, but all craft brewers. That's their mission. And then, Miller and some of the other big guys are less aggressive with that, but they're absolutely, they are 90% of the beer market, where craft breweries are 10% of it. So they have a lot of weight to throw around, and they throw it around. And there's also obviously competition within craft beer as well. But it's a little different, I think, in that communal aspect of it, and then also I think you can compete a lot more just on the quality of your product rather than necessarily your relationships with the Harris Teeter or whatever it may be.
Right, and you're backing it up with the in-house sales, come in and grab a pint, which you couldn't do before.
Right, yeah, and that's wonderful because people get to come in, they get to try our beer, freshest at the source, get our message from our people, get to show them what our brand's all about and our beers are about. Hopefully they come in and have a good time, a good experience, and then that'll translate when they're going out to their local pub or grocery store and picking up some Atlas. Do
you get to a spot, like you took on the location at the ballpark? I know rents over there aren't cheap.
That is very true.
do you ever go, holy cow, I'm here, I'm about to do this, I'm about to take that next step? Do you have nerves? What's going on? Or are you just completely confident?
No, absolutely not. And that's, again, we don't do anything that's completely unmeasured, so we're thinking about things a lot before we actually take those steps, but each one of those steps is super scary because you don't know. You don't know, and as I was talking earlier, at the end of the day, if it falls apart, then that's on me. But, the Half Street location, if we open, we're hoping to in April of 2020, that process started probably in the beginning of 2018 or so, with just starting looking for the space and then talking to the landlord and negotiations and all of that. So it's a very, very long and drawn out process, and it's kind of almost death by 1,000 cuts by the time you're knee deep into it. That's been, probably 15, 20 different things so you've gotten to accomplish to that point.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier before we started the show, you just didn't know it would keep going like this, which is kind of cool. You just continue to let it evolve.
Yeah, we've sort of, like I said, we kind of, we've had a great organizationally, like, the culture is wonderful, and that's not been something we've necessarily focused on purpose. It's just kind of, think I've been the nature of just how we run things and the people that we surround ourselves with, and that's sort of self-reinforcing, which is wonderful. But I think my general philosophy is pretty, not hands off, but pretty sort of, I guess, bottom up. It's kind of like let people do their thing, and as long as they're not doing anything stupid or bad or negative, then just kind of let people grow the way that they grow and just go along for the ride. And
it's an industry too, I would guess, that people are excited to work in, right? So somebody comes along and goes, hey, I want to do this or that. You gravitate towards a certain type of employee or partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Like as I mentioned, people who are interested in this industry or in this industry tend to be pretty low key, pretty easygoing. And they're. I mean, it's definitely a business, and it's a industry, and a stringent industry, but it's also beer at the end of the day. So it's cool and it's fun, and you get to drink beer and you get to try new recipes, and there's a lot of fun that happens behind it as well. But it's funny, like when we have openings for, especially on the production side, if we have an opening for a brewer, we get tons of resumes from middle-aged lawyers who are just sick of their job, and just like, oh man, it'd be really cool to go and brew beer, not realizing that it's it's a hot and very laborious job back there.
Yeah. Where are you in terms of distribution? I'm guilty of not knowing. Are you primarily local, regional? Are you broadening? Are you going national? Where are we now?
So we distribute in DC, Northern Virginia, and Maryland, and so that's our current footprint. We're probably sticking with that for a little while. I mean, we're growing fast enough within our current markets that it would make sense to add another one right now. We've got to kind of keep up and concentrate with what we're doing here locally. But eventually, who knows? When we first opened the brewery, I mean, it was not a far cry for a new brewery to open and be able to take their beer all over the country. And now I think that with all the proliferation of breweries out there and just how much beer is out there, I don't think that's a possibility for anybody really these days. Even the big national craft brands are retracting some from where they are. So we're happy to just sell beer in our backyard and just grow deeper in there.
There's enough people in the DMV that it works just fine. Stay
absolutely,
hyper-local.
Thirsty people out there.
Yeah, you just branch out regionally and you're fine. You don't have to go too far. That's the short-term vision. What are you thinking longer term? Where are you? How are you thinking about 5 years from now?
Oh man, I haven't had time to think about 5 years from now.
I'm fascinated by this guy. It all just happens. He didn't think 5 years from now. Like, there's something magical happening here that I'm trying to get my hand on, and I can't just do it.
Never giving you my secrets,
yeah,
Jason.
You drink a lot.
That's it. That's what it is. That's the inspiration.
Damn it. All right.
No, I don't know. I mean, thinking longer term, what we've done so far has been successful. That we have a big jump that we're taking with this second tap room in a very expensive place and a very hopefully busy place. And we'll have to see after that if that works. We're still trying to solve our production problem of figuring out how we can find some more space and some more space for tanks to continue with our with our sales growth that we're having now. And that's probably will lead us to whatever the next step is, if that's a new brewery somewhere or a third location, or I'm not sure. But I think we'll just sort of, as we have always done, kind of finish the thing that we're doing and just see where that takes us.
I know you'll be super excited when the new location opens in April over at the ballpark, right? Opening day's the goal.
That's the goal,
We're going to try and get it out for opening day. How exciting is it for you to be where you are right now? As you if you could step back for a second and just look at it and be like, all right, 2013, I went from here to here to here. Holy cow, I'm opening at the ballpark. Do you give yourself credit? Do you pat yourself on the back? What goes through your mind?
I mean, a little bit, try to, it's sort of like, I don't know, I always say, like, success is a series of very small wins. And so when you're looking at each one individually, none of them seem like a very big monumental deal. But when you look at them, as you said, kind of line them all up and look back, it's pretty amazing what we've been able to do from, two guys in a warehouse to where we are now with plenty of room to continue to grow. But yeah, it's sort of it's humbling, and try not to pat myself on the back too much because there's always more to do down the line,
Fascinating. Is your biggest risk that you actually have to go back to a government job? Not that there's anything wrong with folks that are working a government job, but is that your biggest fear? That's it? That's the worst that could happen? If this all fails, then what? You gave it a go.
Yeah, I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's a good way to distill it. I might might have to move in with you because they'll take my house, but then I can go back to the government and
I'll sell it for you. Don't worry about it. So that's it. Okay. If somebody's out there watching right now and they're thinking about transitioning from a career that they're maybe not excited about, they're not passionate about, they're thinking about being an entrepreneur or doing something different, what's your advice to them?
Do it. You just got to do it. Like I meet a lot of people who ask that question or have an inspiration that they want to chase, but that taking that leap is super, super tough, especially as we talked about earlier, going from something that's concrete and secure and stable, and then just throwing yourself out there to where to the complete opposite of that. But the only way to do it is to just take that step, and even if you take the step and you fail, you'll figure something else out or you'll go back to whatever you were doing. But I think taking that step is the most important part, because without it, you're never going to get there.
And you're never going to know what you could have done.
That's right.
And you're never going to know what you know now today.
Right.
So fascinating, man. Congratulations on the success.
Thank you.
I'm putting in a plug for a free t-shirt. I like the blue Atlas one over there. But check them out at the ballpark, the new one. Come to this location and just say hi to Justin. He's around Monday through Friday at least, and maybe sometimes on the weekends. Greatly enjoyed having you on the show, and congratulations on your success, brother.
Thank you so much. My pleasure chatting with you, Jason.
All right.
Yeah.